Chapter 14, verse 15, 1-5. Rajasi pralayam gatva karma sangishu jayate tatha praleenastamasi mudhayonishu jayate. At the time of death, Rajasi pralayam gatva. That means the Rajasic person with a predominant Rajasic, ambitious, energetic, seeking, outwardly seeking Rajasic personality will naturally will find after death, that is in rebirth, the yoni or the home of people who are similarly attached to action. We have seen it so far. Now Bhagwan says in verse number 16, Karmana sukrutasyahuhu satvikam nirmalam phalam rajasastu phalam dukkham ajnanam tamasah phalam. Karmana sukrutasyahuhu. Okay, the fruit of good action naturally will lead to good action or a good result, good phal. That is actually doesn't even need an explanation, because if we are contented and cheerful and quiet and serene, I'm not saying occasionally getting into some kind of a hotspot, but predominantly if we are contented and cheerful and that becomes our swabhava, then we have this ability to single pointedly apply our mind to something higher. Okay, now Krishna has got a trick up his sleeve. Let's say the Vedas. What happens is everyone tries to see that मैं सात्विक कैसे हो जाऊं? How is it possible for me to be sattvic? Why? Because only when the mind is dwelling in silence and in quietness and in stillness, sthita pragyasya. Sthita pragya is a person who is constant in his knowledge, steady, not being tossed about by the world. Such a person is capable of the highest knowledge. Which means what? Which means that I cannot gain the highest knowledge in Rajasic mode. I cannot ever gain the highest knowledge or jnana or mukti or liberation in Tamasic mode. It's just not possible. The only possibility that remains for us now is Sattvic mode mein hi it's possible for me to rise higher. So if that is my only alternative, then we had better be heading for it. We'd better be aiming for it. Let's keep that as our goal. And then the issue begins, how can I do it? So our scriptures have a couple of solutions. So elsewhere it has been stated that can you first of all escape? I want to go back a step and ask, can we escape the three gunas? Three gunas, Sattvic, Rajasic and no. Because we have a birth, and with that birth comes the body, the mind and the intellect. This body, mind and intellect will have the expression of Sattvic or Rajasic or Tamasic. It needs an expression. This body is a counter, a transactional counter between the world, the sansar and the self. So the expression has to be done through something. So the three gunas. Now, ऐसे तो गौतम बुद्ध भी और Muhammad भी and Jesus Christ and Mahavir, they all had bodies. They had all taken avatar. So if they had bodies, that means they had the three gunas. You mean to say that Buddha and Muhammad and Mahavir and even Krishna, by the way, Krishna is a charioteer and avatar right there in front of us. Krishna, all of them have body and mind and intellect. So are they also subject to the three gunas, Sattvic, Rajasic and Tamasic? Yes. Yes. Then what is the difference? All right. The difference then is that, imagine even Krishna and Christ and Muhammad have three gunas. That when they express themselves, they choose to express through Sattvic. That is the only difference. And yesterday, Snehaji had sent a beautiful video that was of Dr. Joe Dispenza, who was saying, if you cannot see your three gunas, of course he didn't use that word, if you cannot see your swabhava and your attitudes and your actions, how can you change them? In order to change them, you need to see and observe. So how did Krishna and Muhammad and Christ, how did they express themselves? Only and only through sattvic, no matter what the provocation. Only through sattvic was their expression. That's because they were probably completely aware at each moment about how they're using, what is the reaction first of all rising in their mind, and how they can turn it into sattvic. We know it, the examples are there. I mean, nothing can be more provoking or horrifying than being nailed to the cross. And at that point, Jesus said, forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. Forgiveness is the most sattvic quality, and he could express it at such a moment. What about Gautam Buddha when he was crossing through a village? And if you remember this story, I'm sure, that there was this person through one of the villages who abused him. And he said, you're a fake and you're a liar. So Gautam Buddha just stood there, and he could have reacted, of course. And even in silence, sometimes we react. Even when we hold our silence, that silence can be a very angry silence, where we don't want to get into a confrontation, but we are seething inside, burning inside. No, Gautam Buddha's silence was not of that kind. He just stood his ground and he said, look here, young man, if you're given a gift and you really don't need that gift, what do? And you don't want it. Young man said, why? Return it, of course. So Gautam Buddha said, yes, thank you. Your anger and your harsh words are your gift to me. I don't need them right now. So they go back to you. They are yours. So we have seen Buddha and Christ and Muhammad. In fact, there were tribes who were against him and who were rooting to kill him. It was a very tribal community at that time, and he could have been killed at any time. But he used his time to heal the sick, and to, he had a shakti that he could heal the sick with a touch. So even when there was so much tribalism and violence at that time, how is it that he could use his time in this sattvic work for the welfare of others? So, and Krishna here, that everyone is agitated right now. Dhritarashtra is sunk under the burden of attachment to his sons. I want my sons to win. Duryodhan, on the other hand, is actually seething with discontent because he wants Hastinapur. He wants Indraprastha. And he said, I have to win. He had so many complicated problems. Duryodhan is not a simple character at all. In fact, he even had a worry that his own teacher, Duryodhan, who is also the teacher of Arjun, may favor Arjun in the battle. So he went and told him sarcastically, I hope you don't favor your favorite student Arjun. Why use sarcasm? And you know that sarcasm is a form of harshness. Even in our common, ordinary, normal life, we have seen that. Sarcasm can be very hurtful, and it's meant to hurt. Duryodhan was actually sarcastic with with Dronacharya, saying, I do hope you're not going to favor your favorite, your blue-eyed boy Arjun. You see, if Dronacharya has chosen to fight with the Kauravas, do you think that his integrity and ethics will allow him to move away from his commitment? How can you even expect that from a guru, and your own guru? This is the kind of distrust that some people hold, and disrespect for their own teachers. Duryodhana had his own problems. Dhritarashtra was burning. And the other issues were Arjun himself. Of course, Arjun himself was grief-struck. How can I raise my weapon against my own cousins and my own grandfather and my own beloved teacher Dronacharya? His grief and Dhritarashtra's attachment and the greed of Duryodhana, everything which is in Sansar is there in Mahabharata. And right now, as the battle is raging on, Krishna is the only one who is untouched, but he has also got a body. I mean, he's taken an avatar, so he's got a body, right? But Krishna chooses to be untouched even in the midst of the battle. I'm choosing situations which are provoking, because normally when we are seated in a nice corner and everything is fine and we have our little comfort zone, we cannot know what is our predominant guna. We can know our predominant guna only when we are interacting with people. Jai Krishnamurti used to say, you can know yourself in relationship. He used to use these kind of abstract terms, and people found it hard to decipher what he meant. Actually, he was well versed in the scriptures itself. So the question here is, if Gautama, Buddha, and Jesus Christ and Muhammad and Krishna have a body, and all the three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas, are playing on them, they choose to express only sattva. That is the power of a wise person. They choose to express through. Krishna said, Atmannevatmana tushtaha sthita pragyasya dochyate. Sthita is steady, is the one who is able to Atmanya. He said this in chapter 2. Atmannevatmana tushtaha, who is contented and silent and still and complete and whole in himself. Atmannevatmana tushtaha, complete and whole. So Krishna was that, complete and whole, and we all are actually. It's just that we don't know, and therefore we seek out there in the world. So, not to say that, oh, these were all Peers and Paigambars and, the wise people. So, how is it? They can hold on to Sattvic even when they have a body. That is the sadhana that they've done. That is the power that they have. But you can see that there are some ways in which we can cultivate Sattvic in us too. Because it's not possible for us to straight away reach that level where we can forgive a slight and not be agitated by loss of relationships or financial loss. It's not possible. So, in the scriptures it is said, step number 1, don't try and artificially think about Sattvic. Do one thing, get into action right away, Sattvic action. What is that Sattvic action? Of course, we have heard it umpteen number of times. Seva, sadhana, satsang. Because in seva meaning just choose your cause around you in the community. There are so many causes in the nation, there are so many causes. Just choose your cause and plunge into it. Because once we do seva, we are going beyond our own selfish seeking. So seva, choose some cause and devote some time to it. Sadhana is when we are looking for a higher knowledge. So it could be self-study or listening to the scriptures or teaching or learning anything. So swadhyay or adhyapan. So when we do this sadhana of seeking the higher, what are we going to do? We are reaching higher than ourselves. Our selfish, little, petty, sansari, seeking, pleasure-seeking self, we have to go beyond it. So both in seva and sadhana, there is a movement away from that self-seeking, self-centered self. And also in satsang. So sadhana, seva, satsang is a magic bullet which we have seen in so many scriptures. But we don't take it seriously. हो जाए तो ठीक है, नहीं हो तो भी ठीक है. अच्छा चलता है attitude. That चलता है is called the tamasic way to live, procrastination and putting things off which are really important. That is slightly veering towards the tamasic. Now when we say satsang, what do we mean by it? We know that company matters. It's common knowledge that if you want to know a person, just find out what kind of company he keeps. I used to add a little something of my own. If you want to know what kind of a person someone is, just look at his bookshelf. If there is a bookshelf. There are many homes where there are no bookshelves, so that's also a pity. How old is it? What were the latest books they've bought? What is the recent reading? How updated are they? And what is the quality of reading? So are we going into, is that person seeking literature which is sattvic or rajasic or tamasic? Yes, even literature can be sattvic, rajasic and tamasic. We'll come to that. But now we're talking about company. Sadhana, seva, satsang. Satsang has been underlined and emphasized so many times that we cannot overemphasize the importance of it, and also to let our next generation know how important it is. We just drift into relationships, we just drift into social circles, we just drift into communities where we happen to find ourselves, or buy a house, or someone takes me, or my spouse says कि ये मेरा circle है, चलो इसमें interaction करते हैं. We just drift. Be careful. Scriptures say be careful, because that company is going to shape you. That company is going to shape the character. That is the mental climate of sattvic or rajasic or tamasic. Now company matters. Even the Bible says that wisdom flows from the mouth of the wise. So what should we do with the wise people? So one of the Tamil poets had said that it is good to see the wise, it is good to listen to them. It's better to talk about the wise people, but it is best if you can go along with the wise people. So what the Bible says, every saint, every Mahatma, every wise person will say the same in different languages, in different cultures, and through different scriptures. That doesn't change. Now, there was a post recently which caught my eye on WhatsApp. It said that if you sit, you may have seen it, if you sit for a few minutes with a financial advisor, at the end of it you feel that, oh my God, my investments are really insufficient. I've not invested wisely. I've not invested enough at all. Sit with a businessman for some time. Chat, go over for a cup of tea and hang out with that businessman. Maybe over the weekend when he takes you out on his very new yacht to his farmhouse or something. Talk with a businessman for some time and you feel, oh my God, my own earnings are so meager compared to this businessman. Sit with a scientist for some time. Why am I quoting this post? Because it talks about the different kinds of company. Sometimes we just find ourselves in the company by chance. Sometimes we choose. We have to be choosers. Sit with a scientist for some time and we come away feeling, oh my God, the enormity of my ignorance about the sansar and the universe. Not sansar. Sansar is very material. He talks about the universe, and he talks about the scientist is also looking for that ultimate final truth, that if I break down the atom to the final last possible quantity, what is it that I can find which is then not which is not divisible after that, indivisible, last. Of course, so far, as I said yesterday, so far scientists have found, they used to think everything is material and it has atoms, and these atoms fuse together in a tight bundle. It forms a body, like a stone or a body. Everything is matter. 100 years later, they're saying, not even 100, within 50 years, they've changed their mind and say, oh, we've gone down to the last indivisible part of an atom and it's pure energy. Right. It may take a few more years, and I hope they will also come to the fact that energy has to be driven by something. It cannot be suspended out of nowhere. It is driven by consciousness. So the last indestructible, avyaya, all-pervasive truth of the world is consciousness. If you sit with a scientist, they'll be talking about such things. I'm not saying they will have the right answers or wrong answers, but the exploration makes us feel, oh, how enormous is my ignorance. Okay, sit with a social worker for some time. And at the end of it, you feel, oh my God, I have contributed nothing to society. I have so much energy. I have a body, body in the sense healthy body, and I can devote enough amount of time and energy to the welfare, for the welfare of other people. Look at this social worker doing this and that, starting an old person's home and rooting here and there for donations, trying to prop it up. Not making it his or her problem if they don't get finances, if something goes wrong, the manager is a crook and the roof is leaking in the old person's home. There'll be plenty of problems. Just look at a social worker. They don't make it their problem. they still go ahead, steamroll ahead into the issues and try and solve it, because that's their commitment. When you talk with a social worker, you feel, oh, what is my contribution to society? Negligible. And then when you sit with a soldier, you feel, oh my God, the sacrifices that I have done in this life and the hardships that I have borne are totally insignificant. And then if you sit with a teacher or a Mahatma or a saint or a Swami, and then you say, I feel like becoming a student again. That is the feeling you get in company. So the company we seek, you're going to come away from that company with different feelings. So I haven't added these kitty parties. I don't know what transpires there, but from what I have heard, yes, there's a lot of gossip and chatter and comparison of possessions and dresses and jewelry and costumes and achievements of their family and stuff like that. So what happens at the end of it, when I come away from such company, my mind is seething with comparisons and envy, maybe. Or maybe if I have nothing much to envy and I'm already gloating inside with the kind of achievements and possessions I have, which I got to talk about at that in that social circle. So I am either ghamandi or I am feeling envious. Okay, so the company I keep, I come away from it with that kind of a guna, sattva, rajas, tamas. Sit with a wise man, you come away saying, I want to be learning more. I want to learn some more. There's a wealth of knowledge. The scriptures are like an ocean. I want to plunge into it. I want to dive deep into it. That's the feeling you come away with. Hold on to that feeling. How to hold on to that feeling when my company consists of all kinds of diverse people who are in extreme rajas mode or tamasic mode, and some may be in sattvic. So therefore, the second solution is, this is the first solution. First solution, which means seva, sadhana, satsang, all clubbed together. The solution is, seek the company that will take you to a higher plane. That will, which also means if we had a choice, and nowadays we do, have a choice of the life partners, because they are going to shape a large part of what we achieve and seek spiritually in our lives. So the most important influential factor is going to be the life partner, and that can either take us to sattva or take us or keep us hanging in rajas or take us to tamas. So company begins with the family and then friends and etc. So actually Adi Shankaracharya, if you remember 12th century, he had written Bhaj Govindam, where one of his most quoted verses says exactly this. He says, सत्संगत्वे निस्संगत्वम. सत्संग ऐसा चूज करो जिससे आपको कंपनी ऑफ सच पीपल दैट विल टेक यू टू नॉन अटैचमेंट. निस्संगत्वे यानी कि हम जब किसी भी महात्मा या स्वामी या टीचर, या आई कॉल देम स्वामीज बट it's not as if they are dongi swamis. Let's call them as spiritual teachers when we go to learn our courses. So spiritual teachers, when we sit at their feet, we don't come away feeling attached to anything, because they have not talked about attachment. They've talked about vairagya. Keep the company of people, such people, satsangatve nissangatvam. When you find non-attachment in the people, nissangatve nirmohatvam, you will be free of delusion, nirmoha. When you are free of delusion, nirmohatve nishchalat tattvam, the mind will be steady, not chanchal, nishchalat tattvam. When the mind is steady and quiet, nishchalat tattve jivan muktihi. It's a beautiful song. We were planning to take this text afterwards. It's a song actually, jivan mukti, satsangatve nissangatvam, nissangatve nirmohatvam, nirmohatve nishchalat tattvam, nishchalat tattve jivan muktihi. How did satsang turn into mukti? Can you see? I was astounded when I read this verse that satsang is something we take very lightly, and Shankaracharya ji is saying through some logical connections that through non-attachment and non-delusion and quietness of the mind, it can, even that satsang can take you to your final liberation. Mukti, Jivan Mukti, not after death, while we are alive, Jivan Mukti. If this is the promise of Shankaracharya, and he is one of our greatest masters, I'm sure there's some truth in it. So, sadhana, seva, satsang is one way that we can increase the proportion of these slowly, consciously and deliberately in our lives, not being led away by, because there's always the pressure of the sansari commitments. Aaj ye karna hai, kal wo karna hai. That clutter will never reduce. In fact, if we have more time on our hands, the clutter just spreads out. That's the Peter principle. or Parkinson's law, whatever you call it. What happens is that when you have work, less work, it just expands to cover the amount of time you have. It's just a funny Peter principle. That means that the same amount of work, you will do it over a larger period of time. It's a common law. Now, if you can complete all the sansari commitments and this and that, and say consciously, deliberately, put it in my timetable, how many hours am I taking in this week for sadhana, seva or satsang, then it happens. Otherwise, it does not happen. If we are watching, it happens. So from good company, straight to liberation. Wow, that's really an astounding truth mentioned in... So sattvic company seems to be the most important, pressing and burning need of the hour for us. If you come down to the common brass tacks from the high philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, it comes down to that. It boils down to that. That what is the kind of company we are keeping. And company just doesn't mean people. It means the kind of locations we travel to, the kind of literature or entertainment or media that we are surfing, and of course the kind of food and the kind of effort towards meditation that we are making. Everything is going to make a difference, and therefore the poet Avvayar from Tamil Nadu used to say, sweet is solitude. Sweet is solitude, but sweeter it is to meditate upon God. And sweetest it is to have the company of wise people. So there are many, many poets and philosophers who have actually said that seva, sadhana, satsang, if we know how we can transform our lives from tamasic to rajasic to sattvic, then yes, the formula is there, right there, staring us in the face, but the effort is not there, because either we haven't been exposed to it, or it doesn't bring direct, tangible, material results. You know, like if I do a certain amount of work and I am expecting some profit, then it is a tangible result. But sadhana, seva, satsang, I don't see tangible results, and therefore maybe the motivation is not there. So it takes a lot of thinking to redirect our lives, and the promise is that even if I'm not feeling very sattvic, if my attitudes haven't transformed, then the trick is just plunge into sadhana, seva, satsang. Plunge in, not even understanding what's going on, and seek the company of someone who is doing social work, so it becomes seva. And satsang, of course, get into groups where there is some learning going on, sadhana, seva, satsang, and self-study. Just plunge into it even if we understand very little, and slowly, that's the trick. Slowly what happens is it becomes a habit, and that habit then becomes an automatic discipline of the mind, and over a period of time this will happen, because we notice this has happened with every other habit of ours. So why not sattvic habit? Every other habit has become a mental attitude only through practice. The way we justify our anger, first we let an outburst get away from us, and then we don't backtrack, and then we say, Worse than that is when we justify the anger. Yes, I am upset because of this, because he did or she did, or the situation is not right. And when we justify the anger, we only strengthen it. So if we are plunging into sadhana, seva, satsang, we will only strengthen the sattvic. Exactly the same logic applies. We have been strengthening our anger or envy or greed or whatever it is, kama, krodha, mad, lobha, moha, matsarya, attachment, only through practice. So the same logic has to be applied. It's not rocket science. Same logic. That turn it into practice. Just plunge into it. Find your sadhana, seva, satsang, and it will become a habit and then become an automatic discipline of the mind. Now Bhagavan says in verse 16, in the second line he says, Rajasastu phalam dukkham. That if you are seeking the rajasic, then your phala is dukkha. He didn't even say that in rajasic your phala, that is the result of rajasic action, is going to be more agitation or energy or seeking or greed. He says straight away dukkha. Why? Because we are drowning ourselves in multiplicity of actions, to earn, to spend, to preserve, to possess, to keep, and to enjoy, of course. It is incessant, never ending. And the most pathetic of all that is when we do some action to keep up with the janasses. To keep up with the janasses is an expression which means कि ये भाई पड़ोसी के पास ये है, अब हमको ये भी चाहिए. या फिर कोई सोशल सर्कल में मिल गया और उन्होंने ऑस्ट्रेलिया घूमिया, मुझे भी चलना है. ऑस्ट्रेलिया पता भी नहीं मैप में कहाँ है, बट मुझे जाना है. And then it's very pathetic because that desire has risen only and only out of comparison and envy. Not even the desire itself is so pathetic to keep up with the janasses. And therefore the rajasic person spends agonizing amount of hours trying to imitate something that someone else has or possesses or has experienced. Agonizing amount just to imitate. And it's very, very pathetic because uniquely you cannot imitate someone else, and the desire has risen from envy. So we remain in the, and envy is actually not even rajasic, it is a very tamasic quality. And so what happens, that all the effort that we have put into accumulating friends, even friends, some people say कि मेरी संपत्ति जो कुछ भी मैंने कमाया है, one of my friends is fond of saying that, जो कुछ भी मैंने कमाया है धन इस दुनिया में, वो केवल मेरी relationships हैं, because I have kept them strong and steady. And okay, अच्छा आपका धन relationships है, ठीक है. So what happens is that whether it is material or non-material doesn't matter. To earn and to keep and to preserve it कि वैसा ही होना चाहिए, हमेशा के लिए वो होता नहीं है. Neither my finances nor my relationships can remain the same forever, because that is their nature, to change, to transform, to decay, and to be debilitated. जब वो वैसा नहीं रहता, and that object or person or situation or that wealth then becomes depleted, and then it doesn't give me the same joy as it gave me before. What happens then? What happens to your dhan, which we spent half our lives in the rajasic mode trying to hold on to that? Even friends, even our social circles and our wealth, everything depletes. We don't remember that, and they change. So the same joy is now not coming from that source. And therefore Bhagavan, as I said, Krishna must have done some research on this, because he says straight away he says that rajasic mode is not going to lead you into agitation and action. He says it will rajasastu phalam dukkham. Dukh is waiting for you, because all these objects and persons and situations at some point are going to stop giving you the same joy that they gave you before. So why chase it? Why spend so much energy, time on chasing it and acquiring it and holding on to it? So the result is pain. Rajasastu, living in the rajasic mode, the result is pain, is sorrow. It's waiting for you. Sorrow is waiting around the corner for us if we are leading a life of Rajasic, in the Rajasic mode. And of course, the last phrase, Agyanam Tamasap Phalam. तामसिक में रहेंगे तो फिर क्या मिलेगा हमको? अज्ञान ही मिलेगा ना. एंड अज्ञान का डेफिनेशन वी हैव सीन, वन हु कैन नॉट डिस्टिंग्विश बिटवीन सत एंड असत, परमानेंट एंड इम्परमानेंट, एंड देयरफॉर लीड्स अ लाइफ almost at instinct level, comfort level, because the body is always demanding comforts. The mind is demanding luxuries, and the intellect is demanding मान, सम्मान, कीर्ति, यश, approval, मिल जाए कहीं से मिल जाए. So the mind, body and intellect are always demanding, and they are connected. So the body is connected with objects outside, and the man with also objects and the pleasure that those objects bring to us. So the man is connected. So anything that we are connecting with the outside world, that connection itself is a source of dukkha. Actually, it was mentioned in the 5th chapter, 22nd verse. ये ही संस्पर्शजा भोगा, संस्पर्शजा, that connection, उसका स्पर्श कर लिया बाहर की किसी भी वस्तु, व्यक्ति, परिस्थिति, सिचुएशन से, संस्पर्शजा भोगा दुःखयोनय एव च एवते. 5th verse, 5th chapter में भी ये कहा गया था, ये ही संस्पर्शजा भोगा. उसका कनेक्शन ही हमने दूसरी चीजों से बना लिया है, आउटर चीजों से, एंड दैट इज दुःखयोनय एवते. So Bhagavan mentions many things over and over again, because we, like Arjun, are not capable of grasping, and even if we grasp it intellectually, not able to transform it into our lives and integrate it into our lives. That will take years or janma. And therefore Bhagavan says again, no vivek, no gyan, that is the life of a tamasic person. Now we must remember, one thing is important to remember is that gunas are not us. We have gunas. They have become our property. They have become our quality. But we are not gunas. We are far beyond that. We have seen it in so many chapters. We are far beyond that, because we are that avyaya tattva, which is observing. For example, I can see my sattvic gun. I'm feeling like studying now and reading more and more of Vivekananda. Just acquired the entire set of volumes of Vivekananda. I want to read. I feel very sattvic at times. Sometimes I'm reacting to what someone said. Very, can say tamasic, rajasic. Tamasic actually. And rajasic, yes. I want this project of mine to take off, so I want to make a plan. Rajasic. I am in all three different modes. But how do I know? How do I know I am in this mode or that mode? Because I am the observer. And an observer has to be distinct from the observed. How simple is that? If I can observe, I must be different. I must be distinct. I must be above, separate. And therefore that's what I am. So the moment I say कि मैं बहुत दानी हूँ, मैं बहुत क्रोधी हूँ, and I react like this, you'll see a lot of I statements when people are chattering together in any gathering. I like things this way. Most of the time they're talking about their likes and dislikes. What has happened, the mistake that is happening is that we are identifying with our likes and dislikes, which are actually dragging us back into sansar. And those likes and dislikes are coming from the guna. Neither the likes, dislikes, nor the guna are us. So gunatit is a word which means we are beyond these. Although these gunas are natural to us. The only mistake we make is that we start owning it. We own it. मैं दानी हूँ, मैं बहुत compassionate हूँ, मैं क्रोधी हूँ, मैं intellectual हूँ, मैं तो I don't know how else we describe ourselves. I am easily irritated in traffic. मुझे तो ये traffic irritate करता है. That irritability, which is a mark of a rajasic quality, we start owning it. मैं ये हूँ. No, that's a mistake. That is a natural tendency that crops up now and then. Watch it, let it go. That is the observation Dr. Joe Dispenza was talking about in that video. You cannot change it if you do not observe it. If you cannot see it when it's happening, how can you change anything? So now Bhagwan goes on to say, all these gunas are leading us where? Leading us into what? So verse number 17. What are the functions of each guna? Of course we know it, but Krishna, like a good teacher, is fond of summarizing everything for Arjun. So he summarizes what are the functions. Verse 17. Sattvat sanjayate jnanam rajaso lobha eva cha. Sattvat sanjayate jnanam. Naturally, when we are in sattvic, it gives us jnana, knowledge. Rajaso lobha eva cha. The more we indulge in rajas, which means actions outside, kiye chahiye wo chahiye, the more it increases our greed for things in the world. Pramada mohau tamaso. Pramad, of course, is a mark of tamasic mode, and that will the pramad, that is delusion and indolence, is going to increase in tamasic mode. Bhavato jnanam eva cha. Agyan, and agyan is also part of tamas. So tamas mein two. He's given two results in tamas. Tamas, sometimes when it has a grip on us, very hard to claw our way upward towards that journey to the sattva. Sattvat sanjayate jnanam rajaso lobha eva cha pramada mohau tamaso bhavato jnanam eva cha. Now, sattva mode gives us jnana. Which jnana? Most of us think that jnana is if we know about many things about the world, sansar ke bare mein. No, sansar ke bare mein, no matter how much we know, it's not going to give us that ultimate jnana. In rajas mode, you know what we do? We say ki mujhe ye gyan chahiye, ye certificate chahiye, wo understanding chahiye about business or law or management or technology or travel tourism or about some business. We are seeking knowledge. But in Rajasic mode, whatever knowledge, so-called Gyan, knowledge that we are seeking is secular, and it is driven for acquiring something. कुछ पाने के लिए वो उस ज्ञान के पीछे हम भागते हैं. Bhagwan is not talking about that Gyan which we get in the world in order to acquire something from it. Sattvat sanjayate jnanam. This, of course, is the Gyan of the highest self. The knowledge of the highest self. Who am I? I am avyaya. How can I know that? Unless I am in sattvic mode, I will not know. Unless sattvic mode means I am in that stillness and silence, I cannot rediscover myself. And that jnana is only the rediscovery of my real self. Apart, because everything else that I am, which I think I am, this personality and the status and the possessions and the power, whatever, is all an avaran. Avaran is a covering. So when the clouds move away from the front of the sun just shines through. Now this avaran that I am carrying around me, avaran, covering, costume, cloak, whatever you call it, I mistake it for me. I mistake it for myself. Ye main hoon. But then as soon as the body drops, what happens to it? It's gone. All the acquisitions and power and influence and my likes and dislikes, of course, then in Sukshma form it's carried forward. So this Gyan that Bhagwan is talking about is the rediscovery of the self, and it's possible only and only in the Sattva mode. Okay. Now he says, Rajaso lobha eva cha. So what is happening to me in Rajas mode is that I am driven more and more into acquiring. So if I have one property, I have another, then I want another. Some kind of insecurity may be driving me. But am I aware of it? Okay. So I must also know that I'm aware that some kind of either greed or insecurity drove me to acquiring more than I need. Because right now, certainly I have more than a single person needs. Now the question is, okay, if I don't need so much, am I ready to drop everything before I drop this body, to give it away, to make it useful for the welfare of people? When we are aware of this, then we say that, okay, this is greed, and I have acquired so many things through ethical means. I have not even used unethical means. criminal ways, yes, but it is still greed. So when we watch it, that desire drops. Then you know what has driven you and what's really not needed. So the mind then will stop rushing into the world seeking wealth or yash or man or samman or kirti or whatever, because that love, that greed cannot reduce. It cannot be diminished by more action in the sansar for this or that. It cannot be. It has to just increase. And the last is pramada moha tamaso. That is a sense as if we are sleepwalking through life, as if we are not bothered. चलता है ना, खा रहे हैं पी रहे हैं, चल रहा है ना, लाइफ चल रही है, और क्या एफर्ट करना है, for what? So it's like sleepwalking through life, like a drunken person aimlessly wandering and then saying, not knowing what is important and unimportant in life. ये डिस्टिंक्शन भी नहीं पता, सत असत तो छोड़ो, व्हाट इज इम्पोर्टेंट, ये मुझे क्या करना चाहिए. एंड देयरफॉर इट इज सेड दैट इन रजस एंड इन तमस मोड इट्स नॉट पॉसिबल फॉर अस टू एक्वायर द हाईएस्ट. इट्स लाइक सेइंग कि एक समुद्र है जिसमें सलाइन वाटर है, सॉल्टी वाटर है, और मैं उससे कोशिश किए जा रहा हूँ कि मुझे बस एक कप स्वीट वाटर मिल जाए. Not possible, because the sansar is already saline. It's just an analogy. It is saline water in which we are swimming, and we're saying sweet water mujhe chahiye. I want that param shanti, that sukha, that knowledge of God, that highest knowledge about the world, which the scientists are also seeking, of course. But the tamasic person ke paas ye questions hai hi nahi. So the person just drifts, sleepwalking, and then the rajasic person, of course, may at some point, after so many births of action in the world, may suddenly realize that अरे मैं तो इस impermanent world में एक permanent खुशी ढूंढ रहा था, or not खुशी, permanent anything. Some constant, I was looking in an inconstant world, and then after some time there will be a breakthrough, and then we can move up. But this actually was mentioned once again in the 8th chapter. Just a simple reminder. Yam yam vapi samaram bhavam, which bhava we are holding each time. That bhava is we're going to attain that bhava through the life and after life. Yam yam vapi samaram bhavam yajya यजयत्यन्ते कलेवरम 8th chapter में ये कहा गया था. Now this is a story of all these are natural to us, and if we are not watching, like Mullah Nasruddin one day was passing under a fig tree, and at that time he kept searching in the fig tree for a few figs to eat, but it just so happened that he couldn't find any. And you know something? He looked up at the tree and he said, "Tree, I curse you. I curse thee that you are going to wither away." What was the need for the anger? The simple truth was that it was not the season for fruit for that tree at that time. But what does this reaction of Mullah Nasruddin show? What was the reaction show? Of course, this is extreme tamas, when you hurt people or use words in anger or feel happy when someone meets misfortune. Extreme tamas. And the thing is, it comes naturally. It came naturally to this particular person, Mullah Nasruddin, who said, "I curse you. Why is it that you are a fruit-bearing tree, and why is it that I can't have it?" Many of our reactions are unthinking reactions, but we don't know it. Why? Because we are justifying them. You know, मैंने ऐसा क्यों किया? क्योंकि उसने ऐसा किया था. But the moment we justify it, we strengthen the wrong action. The moment we are watching it and choosing sattva over rajas or tamas or anger, if we choose it at that time, and that reflection also doesn't come in the moment of extreme anger or jealousy or krodh. You cannot observe, because Anger is blind, they say. So in blindness you cannot see. That's why we cannot see our own anger erupting and there is an outburst. But if even in hindsight, if we reflect upon it, it may take a day or two and say, okay, that's what I did. Next time, can I watch myself and speak a little more kindly, like in shops or in traffic or in overcrowded places? You know how we are reacting to people. If we just tell ourselves, maybe a day or two later, okay, next time I'm going to test myself if I can react differently to the same provocation. People jostling and insensitive or whatever. Next time, that time will come closer. The reflection time will be maybe within an hour or two. I'll realize, I did that again. I spoke harsh words, or I judged someone, or tried to put down someone. It may just be after a couple of hours. There will come a time, don't worry, when the observation of that reaction will come at the moment of reaction. J. Krishnamurti used to say, if you observe your anger, and anger includes actually kama, krodha, mad, lobha, moha, matsarya, it includes all your attachments and your greed and your envy and our jealousy and our desires. It includes that whole bundle of 6 vikaras. At the moment it arises, he said, if you are able to observe it, at that moment it dissolves. So we can try it. But sometimes at least we should be able to reflect maybe within a day or two, and then closer within an hour or two, and then at the time, and then after some time it just dissolves. It will become a habit to be observing ourselves. It can also become a habit. But that reflectiveness, that reflection upon our own behavior has to be first cultivated, because that reaction and that behavior is coming from either sattva, rajas or tamas. That at least we should be able to categorize. If not, then not much headway is going to be made in the change. No change can be made in this life. So what is the sattva seeking in this verse? Gyan. What is the rajas seeking? Greed. What is the tamasic person seeking? Laziness and pleasures. Where do the question is, if I am the karta and if I do certain actions, and here it is said that all your good actions will lead to gyan, and good action means sattvic actions, and rajasic will lead to greed, then if I indulge in that greed, my next action is also rajasic. So actually it becomes a vicious circle. I am the karta, I choose a certain action, it could be sattvic or rajasic or tamasic, and that action produces the result of gyan or greed or laziness, and that gyan or greed or laziness creates my next action, because the next action will come out of that laziness or greed or gyan. So where does the vicious circle end? My action is leading to my attitude is leading to my action. It becomes a vicious circle, and then we say, I'm trapped. Yes, we are trapped. And that liberation, that freedom we want, because sattvic, rajasic, tamasic, our own attitudes are like golden chains and they are binding us. We have to break through. We have to have a breakthrough. So Bhagavan says in verse number 18, Urdhvam gachanti sattvasthaha madhye tishtanti rajasaha jaghanya guna vrittisthaha adho gachanti tamasaha. Urdhvam gachanti sattvasthaha. That sattvic is something, we are all at 3 levels of our development. All of us, 3 levels of our development. And the sattvic people will gachanti urdhvam, will move upward, naturally. Upward in what? In evolution. Evolution meaning what? Physically we have evolved a lot from the jellyfish, or was it amoeba? Alright, the amoeba, the single-celled organism, and then the sea-dwelling creatures, and then the fish, and then the land-dwelling, and then the dinosaurs, and then the birds, and okay, I got it. The Darwin's theory of physical evolution, we are at the top. But spiritually, we are still behaving like cave people, but in a more sophisticated expression, because they were also capable, the caveman, of kama, krodha, mad, lobha, moha. Okay, forget the caveman. Greed, anger, lust, even animals are feeling. So from animal to me, spiritual evolution, the gap is very little. But intellectual and physical development, evolution, big gap. Now, when we say we have evolved spiritually or the sattvic goes on the highest ladder, it means what? What is that sattvic person's quality? It just means that person is more aware of the experiences that one is going through. Yes, I'm aware of my experiences. No, not outside. What am I experiencing inside? I'm not aware of it all the time, most of the time. Why? Because I'm living outside. My energy is flowing outside. And so therefore my mind is also flowing outside. My senses are also flowing outside. I have no time, no inclination, no training in examining my experience inside. What am I experiencing inside? An evolved person may have a better chance of observing the experiences inside. So that's one indicator. What are the other indicators? When Bhagavan says, look, sattvic person is on the highest ladder of evolution, we must know what he means by evolution. So the second indicator is, naturally, if I am aware of what is driving me and aware of my experiences inside of me, I can then be in control of it, and being in control means not agitated by things and not RDC, reactions, demands and complaints. Remember, these are not evil things. These are just habits we have cultivated, and we just have to break a habit. It's like telling a person who smokes, oh, you're an evil demon. No, they're not evil demons. It's just a habit, and it's a physical habit they have cultivated. We have cultivated psychological habits of reaction, of demand, of complaint, and of course, kama, krodha, mad, lobha, moha, attachment. These are habits. Psychological habits are harder to break. We can break it only if we are observing. If we are observing our own experiences inside of us, turning the energy within, not letting it flow out. What are the other indicators of an evolved person? As the evolved person has then naturally a greater power of focusing, concentration. I don't allow myself, if I am evolved, I don't allow myself to be set adrift by this thought or that action or this company or that person or this situation. Just set adrift. ये कि इनके साथ बह गए, abduct हो गए, situation, vastus and people. No, there's a higher quality of self-control and focus. And therefore, because there is titiksha, no agitation, there is serenity. And serenity actually means we dwell in our own true nature. And are we forgetting our own true nature? No, we can't forget. It is Anand. Sat, Chit, Anand. So we are then a serene person, dwells in joy and serenity and bliss and peace. If this is the highest rung of the ladder, what is the middle rung? Because Bhagavan says, Urdhvam Gachanti, the topmost ladder is an evolved sattvic person. Madhye Tishthanti Rajasa, the Rajasic person is on the middle ladder, he says. Oh, many of us are on the middle ladder, standing either on the top or the middle ladder or the ground floor. Where are we? So we have a choice. We may be, he says, in Rajasic mode, we are in the middle ladder. Now, the person who is on the middle ladder has a choice. The choice is, I can take a step upwards, I can stay there, I can take a step down to tamasic. I can take a step up to sattvic or step down. The ladder is the same. The ladder is the same. So is it possible for us to consciously cultivate the sattvic and say, I'll take a step up? Because the same ladder goes up and the same ladder comes down. I'm not changing anything in my lifestyle, my life, my gunas. There's nothing to change. It's the same ladder which goes up, the same ladder which comes down. I don't have to climb down and take another ladder up. So, in the sattvic mode, a person has the choice to then cultivate that dynamic, sharp, unambitious, creative mind, where I may be unambitious but yet seeking excellence in whatever we do. excellent, do it well, do it perfectly, seeking perfection, but without the agitated ambition or greed of a Rajasic person. Remember, a Rajasic person can also become excellent in what they do and seek perfection and become perfect in what they do, but their motive is greed, acquisition. मुझे ये हासिल करना है, ये पद या पावर या पोजीशन हासिल करना है. So that ambition is dropped. Krishnamurti used to say, can you work like an ambitious man, but without the ambition? That's why he is difficult to understand, because he used to use these kind of phrases. Now, the choice is for me to calm down, take a step up to sattva, and seek a new goal or a new meaning in my life. Or I have a choice that I allow the company I keep or the situation to allow myself to become tamasic, careless about the higher call. Tamasic, is careless. Higher call है क्या? ऐसी कोई higher चीज़ है क्या? तो life तो यही है ना, खाओ पियो आराम करो, मतलब मौज करो. You have heard this phrase a lot of times, and they are deluded, sleepwalking people. So the choice is to get up. When you are in tamasic, Bhagwan is saying, in the second line he is saying that in the lowest guna, in the tamasic, if you're residing, that means we are dwelling most of the time, then what you meet is jaghanya guna vrittasthaha adhogachanti tamasaha. You are going to gain no release from this, the grip of laziness and the grip of heedlessness. Pramad is heedlessness. But the question is, from tamasic, can I jump directly to sattvic? Not possible. So there are many people who have been told, doesn't matter about sattvic, about the highest truth, about the philosophy of life, about the ultimate goal of life, about moksha, doesn't matter. Take the next step. The next step is get up and do something. And if you do something for society, for the welfare of others, so much the better. But do something. Just get up and do something, rather than lie around and on the wealth created by others. After death we carry our guna, yes, to be remembered. Then it passes on from life to life. Now these are three ropes, because they are binding us to, hooking us, our mind and intellect. Where do they reside? Mind and intellect. How do I know? Because in my deep sleep I found that I was free of all the gunas. And because I was free of all the gunas, Sattvic, Rajasic, Tamasic, I was free of my likes and dislikes. Because I was free of my likes and dislikes, I was free from the sorrow or joy of those attractions or distractions. I was free. But of course in Agyan, deep sleep is in Agyan. In Gyan, being completely aware and dynamic and sharp and creative and aware, in that state can I still say, okay, I am free from the gunas, my likes and dislikes, and therefore free from my sorrow. So the mind and the intellect was dormant. We talked about it. And in death also it is dormant. But in death my gunas go in sukshma causal form, they carry forward. So when I am free in waking state from the gunas, is that moksha? Yes, that is Jivan Mukti, which Shankaracharya was talking about. Jivan Mukti. That means while living, already liberated. So what have we seen? We have seen in tamas, we feel unmotivated, lazy, definitely not reaching out to anyone to make a difference in anyone's life. Rajas, I want to make a difference only in my life or my family's or my community. It's very self-centered, driven action, but a lot of agitated, energetic action, ambitious. And we have seen in sattva that the person is chasing Gyan. So chasing Gyan can also become Rajasic. Be careful that मुझे धन चाहिए या ध्यान चाहिए, लेकिन वो दोनों के पीछे मैं जिस एजिटेशन के साथ पढ़ता हूँ, that quality can be Rajasic. धन चाहिए, Rajasic. ध्यान चाहिए, अभी चाहिए, I have to do something. Agitation के साथ ध्यान भी is going to become a Rajasic seeking. Now, everything, the misery, the elation, everything resides only in the mind and intellect. I'll close with verse number 19, where Bhagavan says, yes, of course, your gunas are passed on through lifetimes to describe this path of liberation. Finally, what will happen from lifetime to lifetime? How many lives? So here he says, I'll just read verse 19 and close. Nanyam gunebhya kartaram yada drishtanu pashyati. When the seer means someone who is able to see that these gunas are the ones which are holding me, and they are the only agents of my bondage. Then what happens? Gunebhyascha param veti madbhavam sodhigacchati, and realizes that there is something higher than just these gunas. That person, madbhavam sodhigacchati, attains me, Krishna, consciousness, liberation, moksha, or the highest truth, whatever you call it, Krishna consciousness. Madbhavam, he can come to me only if nanyam gunebhya kartaram, that seer is able to see that there is no other agent holding me down except my own gunas. How do I do that? I'm riding on my gunas. My mind and my intellect is riding on the gunas. Okay, so take the analogy of a train. A train is what you are riding in, and therefore all the jolts and jerks and commotion and rattle of the train is going to be yours. Aha. Do I have a choice? Yes. Step off the train. One of the Swamis said it. At that time, it sounds funny. Just step off the train. Oh, but I have to live in this world. Kya kare? No, you can live in the world. The mind steps off the train. Platform par khade ho jao. Platform par khade ho jao. The jolts and rattles of the train are no more yours. You become an observer. And then that bumpy ride, that bumpy journey of dukkha and sukha and travails and misery and elation is no more yours. Stand apart. Stand on the platform. The mind, that is. Udasinavat. That's what Krishna had said once before also. Udasinavat. As if you are utasin, sitting apart or above. Don't identify with it. Do we identify with unclaimed baggage? No. This is not mine. So this sansar is not mine. It doesn't belong to anyone. The person who has left his or her body has left every last single penny behind. And also relationship, by the way. So the moment the soul departs, it knows no relationship to the person who is still standing by the bedside and weeping and saying, weeping for whatever. The relationship is gone for that soul. Snapped in 1 second. So, it's not mine. Unclaimed baggage. So, distangling ourselves is a form of vairagya or non-attachment or whatever we may call it. So, that person who has seen this, that only the gunas are holding me down, is the person who will attain me. Madbhava adhigacchati. Madbhavam sodhigacchati is Bhagwan's promise. Because their gunas are reflecting only on my mind. My mind is actually made of sukshma matter. It is not consciousness. It is sukshma matter. Because I can see it. I can see my gunas. I can see my mind. So it's not matter in the sense of the physical sciences, but it's matter in the sukshma sense. It is still matter. Now, in the 20th verse, now the Lord Krishna is going to explain, how can I attain that great goal? How? Tell me more. Arjuna is also going to ask. How? Because this is a complete book of life. It's not just philosophy. कि ऐसा होता है भाई और ऐसा ही रहेगा. नहीं, हमको वहाँ पहुँचना है. So this is a manual for living. Bhagavad Gita is a manual for living. It's not a book of only mere theoretical philosophy. We'll see that next time. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.